Jeez, this thing is awesome. Made even better by the fact that I put it together myself.
Yeah, just to give you a little idea of how much I love this franchise, I spent about a day and a half just putting this model kit slash puzzle together. Sure, the instructions show how you build the pieces right after you get them off the runners, but then you had to figure out how to get all of those pieces to stick together to build an upside down pyramid. Really makes you wonder how the hell Yugi managed to build it in a burning building. Oh, the crazy little lad who needed to be reunited with his husbando.
But yeah, if you follow the main channel, then you'll know that we mostly just cover magical girl anime, especially Precure.
However, I've always wanted to go back to my original passion as a kid, which was card games. I'll admit, I was never all that good at any game, not helped by the fact that officially sanctioned tournaments were rather sparsely spread out on this little island we lived on. Regardless, I still had the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, which thankfully I was able to watch mostly in the original Japanese. No, don't get me wrong, I don't think the 4Kids dub was the worst, or at least not the original series.
But if I were you, I wouldn't celebrate just yet, you sticky diaper face!
Am I the only one who thinks Sean Shamble is just a tad bit overrated? But more than the voice acting and the massive amounts of censored content, I think the one thing that I would have missed out on the most had I not seen the original Japanese dub would have been the amazing music of this franchise.
You could pretty much pick out any season of this franchise and you'll likely find some amazing OSTs. From Shinkichi Mitsune's epic themes to the more conventional tunes of Ryo Kawasaki, personally I was always a fan of Yutaka Minobe, especially his work on GX. Judai's theme is everything to me.
However, we're not talking about OSTs today, but rather the thing that's supposed to sell us on this series, the openings, which this franchise has a lot of amazing ones, with even the bottom picks that we'll cover for today not being too bad overall.
For this video, we're going to be ranking all of the openings from the infamous Season 0 produced by Toei Animation, all the way to Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. Yeah, we totally chose to wait until now to do this, and not because I'm absolutely terrible at scheduling stuff. I'll try and rank these based on, of course, some more subjective matters like how much I personally enjoyed the song, as well as how well I think it matches up with the visuals on the screen. Said visuals, on top of looking good, should also give an idea of what the show is like, even if some of it ends up being blatant false advertising. But yeah, we'll try and keep personal opinions of the seasons themselves out of the conversation. We're going to try and look at these as though it's our first time watching these anime, and how well it manages to get us hooked onto these shows featuring card games on this and that. Also, if an opening should happen to have more than one version of itself, I'll try and pick out my preferred version and rank it based on that one, while also giving any other versions at least a mention. On that note, may as well give an honorable mention to the OG 4Kids opening of this franchise. Again, the dub was far from perfect, but I'll admit, this still holds a lot of nostalgic value for me, even with that stupid rap. However, we're just focusing on the original Japanese openings for this one.
We've got a lot to cover, so let's just get into ranking the 33 openings of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise.
Number 33. Kizuna, the first opening of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds by Kra? Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and honestly, I don't care, because this singer is just awful. For the first opening of a series that from the very first shot gave us the most enduring meme of this entire franchise, I'm just not feeling this one, mostly because of this guy singing, if you can even call it that. I swear, it sounds like he downed a cocktail of bourbon and NyQuil because there's just no energy in any of the singing. As a result, I can't make out much of these lyrics unless I read the text at the bottom of the screen, and it sounds like he's just gargling all of his words. I mean, they're not bad. I do like the subtle bit of direction here of having Yusei walking through the slums of Satellite to the metropolitan Neo Domino. It gives new viewers an idea of what his goals are of overcoming the inequality of his world by syncing things up. However, after that, it's nothing much, especially when you realize these social visuals of the riding duel are just going to be reused in the show proper. Most importantly, we're not given a whole lot of insight into these characters, especially the signers, who just quickly appear and that's it. Nothing really to latch onto, which they really should be trying to do in order to sell new viewers on this concept. Obviously, the season would get better openings later, but geez, talk about a slow start right at the starting line. Number 32. Masterpiece, the first opening of Zeo by Mihimaru GT. Yep, from one first OP right to the next, even more so considering Zeo came right after 5Ds, and we got another dud. I mean, I do think it's at least a significant step up from the last entry, at least in regards to its visuals. It gives you viewers a good idea of what this series is about, with Yuma's more fun-loving personality at school, as well as his bond with Astral, though it does also kind of fail to get across the personalities of the other characters. I mean, granted, Kotori never had that much of a personality to begin with, so no big loss there, but it would be nice to see a little bit more of the main rival, Shark, especially considering his importance in the latter half of the series. At the very least, I think it would have helped if we had seen him and Yuma clashing during this final sequence with the monsters, otherwise new viewers would have no idea why the Shiny Man and the Big Blue Dragon are fighting. Still, I guess future developments for Shark might not have been planned out just yet, and thus more focus was given to Kaito, since the first arc was pretty much about him and his father, who they did do a good job portraying as the big bad.
That said, the thing that brings it down for me is again the singing.
Granted, this duet does put a lot more energy into their singing than Krasky, and yet they also don't exactly raise the volume. As a result, it almost sounds like they're whispering a lot of the lyrics and then try to compensate with some needlessly fast-paced synthesizing that makes it nigh incomprehensible. You could argue it's meant to match up with Yuma's hyperactive tendencies, but for me, it just sounds like noise. Again, it is still a major improvement over Kizuna that at least visually gets across what the series is about, but otherwise, if I'm not a fan of the song, then I can't score it that much higher. Number 31, Trump Card, the fourth opening of Arc 5 by Cinema Staff.
Wait, so my local theater made this opening?
But yeah, this one OP really frustrates me on a lot of levels. On the one hand, it does have some visuals that really should put it higher on this list. I especially love this first sequence of the cards flying towards Yua, hinting at the nature of the action duels, especially during this part of the series when they're in the synchro dimension.
Though on a side note, I am not a huge fan of that dimension and how it basically took over the show in its latter half. Thank you so much for that, Katsumi Ono, and your obsession with 5Ds.
Though, putting that aside, as I do want to judge these openings on their own, the visuals are well done. I especially love this bit between Yugo and Yuzu, injecting some decent comedy and getting across their personalities. And everything else is adequate enough for getting across what's going to happen during this part of the series, I guess. And yeah, that's probably my best way of describing this opening. It's just adequate. Nothing outstanding. The song itself does have a good tune, though I also don't think the singer's voice really works for openings, and sure enough, he's done almost exclusively ending themes except for this.
So in the end, he's probably more suited for the more comforting tunes of an ending, rather than the excitement that an opening should generate about stuff like, you know what.
But yeah, other than that, not much else to say. This is pretty good, which thankfully means we're starting to get into the really good stuff. Number 30. Freedom, the third opening of 5Ds by La Fille. So yeah, I know I just took a jab at this show's director, but I still really like 5Ds, and thankfully this opening is a massive step up from its first. Once again, I do appreciate the visual storytelling on display here, especially this first sequence between the three main riders of 5Ds. Yusei once again is starting from the slums of Satellite, though unlike with the first opening, he's not heading towards Neo Domino, having completed his business there in the previous arc, and had found solace in the fact that the social divide between the two was improving. Meanwhile, Jack stood in Neo Domino, and while he had achieved his ideal life there, everything except for the neon signs of the city looked great to him. As though to symbolize, he knew deep down this place was never his home in the first place, and just an empty world full of false neon-lit dreams. No, and Crow has just done his bite to symbolize, I guess, his free spirit. I mean, good stuff, but come on, his bites completely overshadow him, and make him feel kinda superfluous, just like in the actual show. Still, everything else in this opening is pretty well animated, though I also don't think they give quite enough focus on the actual important parts of this arc, like Bruno, and of course the antagonist, Illister. That would be corrected in later openings, but still, this was a good start dash for the insane latter half of this series. Number 29. Unleash, the third opening of Arc 5 by Gekidan Niagara. Yeah, anyone else noticing a pattern with these last 3 OPs? I mean, don't worry, the next one at least won't have you-know-what on you-know-what. Still, Ono aside, this is a simple yet effective opening for getting across the events of this part of Arc 5, as well as a good chunk of the rest of the series. But yeah, throughout, we got some good shots of all of the major characters, in particular the Lancers and their key cards, with some really nicely animated sequences. In particular, this shot of the Dimension Dragons flying up and passing by Jack, who of course gets one of the last money shots of the opening because it's Jack Atlas. Still, the thing that put this just a little above the other openings so far was definitely the song by Gekidan Niagara, awesome name by the way. Though, as far as I can tell at least, this artist doesn't have many other notable singles, which is a bit of a shame because he has a great voice. Not too soft, but relaxed just enough that can get across the sense of wonderment that exploring the multiverse should have brought us with this season, but again, I'm just trying to judge the openings here. And as such, while this isn't anything outstanding on its own, the great song and really good animation really helps to elevate this one to a slightly higher level. Number 28. Pendulum Beat, the 6th opening of Arc 5 by Super Dragon. This season might not have had the cleanest finale ever, to say the least, but at least it had a pretty banging final opening. Focused mostly on the dimensional counterparts, we got some good looks at the boys and their respective dragons, while the girls look cute against the backdrops. And oh god, I'm just remembering how underused these two were. Still, just as soon as I complain, we got an awesome sequence of Yuya leading the Odd Eyes raging dragon into shining its bright light of death across the city, while matching perfectly with the lyrics. I also kind of like the song for how it seemed to smoothly shift between rapping and more traditional pop tunes, all the while living up to the show's themes of smiles by remaining very upbeat through it all, even while sounding kind of aggressive with the initial fly away. That plus the final So Smile is still stuck in my head, so they're doing something right at least. Thus, even though this is another kind of simplistic opening that doesn't really give a lot of context behind the show, and even wrong context, as again, I'm pretty sure the Raging Dragon was never a symbol of happiness whenever it appeared in the show proper, but still, it does go a little higher for having a great song that matched well with the series' overall themes. While the actual ending of the show might not have put a lot of smiles on the faces of fans, at least this opening remained upbeat through it. Number 27. Mirage, the first opening of Go Rush by Frederick. The latest series and opening to come out as of the time of this writing, and it's a strong one in terms of the song. While I haven't had much time to catch this series myself, the lyrics here do give first-time viewers a decent idea of the general themes of this more sci-fi season of the franchise. Essentially, they express Yudia's desire to break out on his own and explore the universe. This is played out with some very good techno beats that I do have a personal soft spot for. Honestly, if I had to rank solely on music alone, this might actually be more within the top 15. However, we also do have to look for good visuals, especially for a new series like this, to really pull their weight. And while these aren't bad, they certainly do a good job of establishing the key monsters of each of the main characters. I especially love this bit of the Trans Am Rhynak overlaying with Udius to symbolize his connection with his ace monster. Everything else is just kind of basic and not nearly as creative with his visuals. There's just a whole sequence with a bunch of side characters appearing without much context other than the obvious rival character. Again, I haven't seen much of the season so far. And when an opening doesn't get me too excited to learn more about these characters, then that is a problem. Still, it is put together competently enough that it does get me interested in seeing how far this franchise can truly be taken beyond the stars. Number 26. Calling, the third opening of Reigns by Kimir. This was the final opening to the last season animated by Studio Gallop, and while it's not a swan song to go out on, it certainly wasn't bad either. First of all, while it's far from his best contributions to this franchise, hint hint, Kimeru is still a very talented artist, and this song and its lyrics do a really good job expressing Yusaku's feelings of loss and confusion without eye by his side. This was complemented with the visuals that, yeah, are a bit on the nose with the two pre-boy leads crying in the rain, but hey, it's a classic trope for good reason. From there, after a few shots of those other characters, we got a nice shot of a stare down between Yusaku and Ai during their final confrontation, with the lyrics outright stating the playmaker's intentions of taking back his friend no matter what. From there, they went back to the happy thoughts about Ai having filled his life with joy before restating his resolve to end this conflict by overcoming his weakness. Yeah, while myself and I think many others will agree that this series, and in particular its third season, was a bit of a rushed mess at times, I do really like this one for all of the great visual storytelling it manages to pull off, with a good song backing it. It did lose a few points for feeling a little incomplete in areas, especially the bits with the side characters, which, yeah, pretty much is this season in a nutshell, but hey, at least these boys look good in the rain. Number 25. Dualism of Mirrors, the fifth opening of Zio by Petite Milady. Fun fact, this song was the debut single of the duet made up of a couple of very well established VAs at that time who surprisingly never landed a role in this season. I mean, Aoyuki would end up playing a criminally underused side character the following season, but it is a bit of a shame that Ayana Taketatsu couldn't get a role in the show and then promptly be tossed aside along with all of the other female characters. Jokes aside though, I do actually really like this opening for the visuals and kind of the music. I mean, as always, I love it when they highlight the major protagonists and antagonists of these shows, and this one also gets some serious points for some very effective visual storytelling. From the subtle bit of the trio walking down different paths, to a lot more overt images of what's going to happen over the course of this series, and yet isn't too spoilery, mostly because it passes by so quickly that you'll most likely miss some of this stuff, which isn't a bad thing, and as a result, gives more time for just about everyone to get a moment. Heroes, villains, and side characters who are mostly relegated to photo cameos, which again is fine, especially if it means reducing Kotori screen time. However, in spite of this legit amazing work, the song itself is just okay in my opinion. I don't know, maybe I'm just not a fan of the melody or the beat, which all feels a little off in my opinion, which honestly isn't too surprising. As I said, this was the duet's first single, so they likely were still trying to find their voices. They would eventually, and even land roles on Pop Team Epic as a result, but for now, while this was one of the best looking Zio openings, it didn't have quite the tune to match well with it. Number 24. Soul Drive, the third opening of Zio by Color Bottle. Taking things back a couple of spaces, we get an opening that overcomes the last almost entirely just on the basis of being a freaking earworm. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is also a very well animated affair. I love this first sequence on the dual coaster that really gets the viewer engaged just through the pure speed of it. And they also do a great job presenting the antagonists of this part of the series, which is far fewer in number, and as a result, doesn't feel quite as bloated as the previous entry. We also got a little more focused on Kaito, before him and his family kind of got sidelined for the latter season. And in hindsight, they were also kind of building up Shark's future involvement and eventual takeover of the show. Still, the thing that sticks in my head, and probably yours too, is that damn Susume or Progress at the start and middle of this opening. I mean, honestly, I don't even think the singer is anything special, and yet that beat and how well it matches up with Yuma riding on his stupid little coaster, and later in his eel form, just gets you pumped, so I do have to give extra points just for that, damn it. Thus, while this wasn't exactly the part of the series where things would truly start to progress, it still makes for one hell of an opening that makes card games on coasters seem a little inviting, yet still not at all practical.
But hey, at least it's not card games on.
Let's go, let's say go.
Number 23. Nah, Time 7. I'm not gonna say the entire thing. The first opening of 7's by Psyche Youth K. The last opening we'll cover for today will be the first of the new generation of this franchise, with production switching over from Studio Gallop to Bridge. And while I'll admit, this new art style, and Rush Duels in general, did take a little while to grow on me, this opening almost instantly won me over. Once again, the earworm factor plays a big part in my enjoyment of it, and arguably, this was the best example of all of these. Seriously, I'm not usually a fan of rapping or whatever they're doing here, but in cases like this where they go all in and try to produce a total caffeine rush of a song, then I'm on board at least. Of course, none of that would have meant anything if there were no fun visuals to match up with it, which thankfully this managed to pull off whilst also effectively getting across the personalities of the core quartet, as well as a little bit of each of their key monsters. This is particularly on display in the latter half of the opening, when they also bring in some very nicely done American comic book-esque transitions, likely so that they could write in Rush Duel as much as they wanted before ending on a nice little hey as a topper. In general, this opening is just pure fun and full of personality, and while it's obviously not my favorite of the series as there's just 2 of them, it still gets you really energized for this new game format that's all about being on a bit of a... what's the word again?
With that, we'll wrap things up for today, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this countdown if the YouTube lords will bless it.
But even if they don't, we'll still try to provide some sort of card game anime related stuff for this channel, both for y'all's entertainment, as well as my own satisfaction. Honestly, I just wanted at least a little breakup from the usual magical girl monotony. Though if you are interested in that stuff, do check out the main channel, where you'll be able to see a lot of the Studio Gallop animators migrate to Precure. Seriously, the next big meme face in this franchise should look like this.
And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and oh, looks like my coaster's here. Better start at the side deck before anything else.